Hey guys, I'm Zach, amateur radio call sign Whiskey 9 Zebra Kilo, and today I wanted to walk through my portable amateur radio station. This is an HF station that does 40 through 6 meters roughly, and this is my go kit that I bring anywhere I want to play radio. So I look a little bit like a terrorist with it, not gonna lie. The signal stick is optional, but it adds to the tactical of the whole setup here. And uh, yeah, so let's get into it. So let's get started with the most obvious here. Um, my 2 meter and 70 centimeter coverage is gonna be the Yaesu Fox Tango 3 Delta Romeo. Now, I bought this a few months ago. I've been extremely happy with it, but it's it is now superseded by the Yaesu FT5DR. The FT5DR, if you look at the list of improvements, is not significantly greater than the FT3DR. They basically just did that for the sake of um, changing up how they're manufacturing it. The FT3DR, because of the chip shortage and a lot of manufacturing issues, is not easy to produce at this time. This video is being made in late 2021, and we are still going through the chip shortage after a handful of factory fires and some more widespread industry issues that we had between 2020 and 2021. But the FT3DR is a fantastic radio, rock solid filters. It's a wideband receiver all the way from HF to about 1 gigahertz, and I don't really have anything bad to say about this radio. Um, it does APRS, it does FM and AM receive. I don't really have much more to say about that, honestly. It's kind of your bog standard handheld. I'll try and put prices up here on the screen. It is on the pricier side as handhelds go, but it does do FM. It has a GPS receiver in it. It does Yaesu System Fusion and Wires X, and all around great purpose radio. It does have a water rating. I would probably call it more splash resistant than submersive resistant, but it is a pretty great all-purpose HT. I have this paired with the signal stick. This is a $20 antenna that I can't recommend enough. You can coil the signal stick up. It's 19 inches long. You can coil it up into a wire if that is much more convenient, which to me it is most of the time, but it is going to work a heck of a lot better and both transmit and receive. I don't recommend transmitting with it like this. Its SWR is not going to be good. It will work a lot better with it folded out. So let's get into my actual go bag here. We'll start from the inside and work our way out. So on the inside, we're going to have a few items. We've got a good 12-foot length of Coax. This is RG8X. I actually have some RG58 on the way. I have an 18-foot length that's on the way, and just because for portable operations, an 18-foot run is really just, we're not going to lose a whole lot of power if we're running a resonant antenna, and I really just don't have too big of a complaint except the size. RG58 is slightly thinner and lighter than RG8X. RG8X works fine, it fits in my bag, but it'd be a little bit more convenient to have the 58, so that's what I've done. For our radio, we have the featured in another video. We have the Yaesu FT891. The FT891 is a fantastic rig. This does 160 all the way up to 6 meters at full power, 100 watts barefoot. This is I can't say anything better about this radio. This clocks in, I think it tops out at 4, maybe 3 pounds. Actually got a little bit of a blemish on it there. At about 3 or 4 pounds. It has built-in kickstands. It is a little bit of a battery sucker. This thing pulls probably close to an amp just on receive, which is pretty bonkers. Um, but it does, I think it tops out. The highest I've ever seen it draw is about 16 or 17 amps on full power transmit. And that's with full, an FM carrier plopped in the middle of 20 or 40 meters. I tried to give it as fair of a test as I could on a 13.8, roughly, probably a little less, closer to a 13-volt supply. But it has a fantastic receiver in it. It has some digital signal processing that I personally am not a fan of the way that it sounds, but if you do crank it up during a weak signal single sideband exchange, it does sometimes help pull out the voice that I would not have been able to pull out otherwise. Now, this is a mobile unit, so technically it's designed in such a way where it has a detachable head with a little a little old phone cable here that you can plug into it, and there's an extension kit, but that's not really appropriate for how I usually have it set up. And then of course I've got the microphone, and this is the bog standard microphone. The FT891 has just outstanding audio quality, even with the stock microphone. With a little bit of speech processing and some tuning of your mic equalizer, you can get this thing sounding absolutely gorgeous. I've gotten so many compliments on my audio with this. So that's the radio that I use. As far as power goes, this is what I use. You could probably use a little bit less than this and be fine, but I personally wouldn't go anywhere without this Bioenno Power. This is the 12 amp hour battery. So this is the BLF 1212A. This is a lithium iron phosphate battery. It's really good as far as voltage drop. There is, as this battery decharges, it really stays between 13.3 and 13.0 volts right up until the end of its charge life. And I can usually, with a standard single sideband operating day at 100 watts, I can usually get a good 3 or 4 hours of operating out of this. Obviously, this depends very heavily on your operating style. If you're going to sit there and call CQ with heavy compression, time and time again without much pause between them, you're going to get a little bit less battery life out of this. But this is a fantastic battery, and I think that it's a perfect balance between weight and capacity. So this is a great battery. It works very well for me. As far as other fun things in the bag, tucked inside this little pocket here, I have a little MFJ key. Now, I don't remember the actual model. I'll display it on screen, but this is a small key that you can buy and put together in 10 minutes if you're if you're relatively experienced. It's very simple. It's your standard paddles. And you can plug that into the FT891 and CW all day if that's your thing. I don't know Morse code. I know my call sign and some of the basic transitions, calling CQ, saying test day W9ZK. I can do all that. And that's good for getting into the rover's beacon network if you just want to see how well an antenna's working and you don't have a computer laying around for FT8. Or something like that. That's a reasonable thing to do. So I do keep the paddles in my bag, even though I don't know Morse code, just in case I'm hanging out with buddies and I do know a few CW operators, and it's a nice thing to have. And given how small that footprint is, it's really not that big of a deal to just pack alongside. It came with a little call map that I also like to carry. This is just the numbers in the United States and roughly where they correspond to. Again, very little footprint, very easy. I don't even know where I got that. It may have actually come with the paddles, I'm not sure. Inside this pocket here, I've got a spare battery for my handheld. The FT3DR is a bit of a battery sucker as well, especially if you've got that GPS running and you're just throwing out APRS every every few minutes, that thing's going to suck the battery dry. So having an extra battery is definitely going to make sure that you're going to get through the day. And if you're conservative with your operating style, you could probably get through a weekend with just 2 batteries for your HT. But again, that very heavily depends on what you're doing with that handheld. Now, along with the other HF accessories I just have this monolithic adapter. This is a whole bunch of adapters in one. So if I start to unscrew things, you'll start to understand what's going on here. I've got a BNC binding post adapter. I have a BNC female to UHF male adapter. I have into that a UHF male to UHF male mate. And if I can get the darn thing, here we go. A UHF male to UHF male mate. I have an L connector. I have more adapters than this. I think that every ham should have a whole butt ton of adapters just laying around it, ready to go at a moment's notice, because you really don't know what you're going to need. It's just great to have stuff like this laying around. So this is what I bring to the field. It tucks away nicely, and it has every adapter that I think I've ever needed. And so that's all I have really in the pockets of the bag. Now to get to the actual cool, exciting part, I did do a video on this antenna. This is the Comet HFJ 350M. This antenna has, I do have a love-hate relationship with this antenna. This antenna works. Not well, but it does work, and I carry it almost exclusively as a backup. I can always get this thing to resonant on the bands that I'm comfortable with, and I've never really had too big of a problem with it. But it's not efficient, and it's not going to take a full beating 100 watts with a heavy duty cycle sitting in the sun. It's not going to be good for that, and I definitely don't recommend pumping barefoot power into it if it's mounted straight to the back of your radio. I've gotten a few questions about whether this is a good antenna, and generally speaking, I say no. This is a very tricky antenna to be able to use. I put together my first video because I've gotten so many questions on how to get that thing to work. So unless you've already bought it, then I don't recommend that you get that antenna, and instead I'll talk about an alternative here in a second, which you may have already noticed. I really don't recommend the Comet HFJ 350M or the MFJ 19, the 1999, 1799, the MFJ version of this antenna that has a BNC connector. I don't really recommend that either. It's just not going to be very practical. But if you have it, then go see my other video on how to get it to work, and just tuck it away as a backup antenna and just kind of don't worry about it unless the need arises. So I do carry this antenna. This is my main antenna. If you're looking to buy, if you were enamored by my Comet video with the HFJ 350M, I would really advise you to look into this alternative instead. So to practically use the HFJ 350M, especially if you want to run full power, you're gonna have to put the thing away from you. And if you're gonna put the thing away from you, at that point, what you're really looking for is more of something like this. So this is a Wolf River Coil. I actually have the SB Mini. So this does 40 meters through 6 meters, pretty well, technically through 10 meters. You don't actually need the coil if you want to do 6 meters with the supplied whips. But this coil is honestly one heck of a better deal. If you're going to be paying, $100+ for the Comet, at this point, you're really probably looking more for something like this. So this is going to be a much more efficient antenna than the Comet, the little HFJ 350M. And it is a little bit more of a pain to put together, but as far as tuning goes, it is actually notably easier to tune. So yeah, it comes in 4 basic parts. So 5 technically. 5 basic parts. You've got the base, you screw it into the coil, and then you screw the whip into the coil's top here. And then in the base, you screw in these 3 legs. And so this is this is supposed to be a loaded quarter wave vertical. And so they've supplied you some radials to run. So they give you 3, they do not supply you with these wire winders. I highly recommend these wire winders. Also, I think I got these from MFJ. I'll throw the model number up on the screen. Again, I don't remember off the top of my head. These are super nice, wired in a figure 8 pattern. You can just throw them together, and I can, wind this up in 30 seconds and unwind it in 30 seconds. And I can get this entire station deployed in about 10 minutes and on the air with a resonant antenna. And honestly, it's just a great setup. I've made tons of contacts already with this antenna. I'm very happy with the Wolf River Coil. Again, the versatility of having a resonant antenna on pretty much any band is just fantastic. Now, if you can afford to fit the Silver Bullet 1000, the full-sized 80 meters through 10 meters one, I do recommend that, just because 80 meters is very useful for near vertical incidence skywave propagation, as well as if you're just trying to get some short skip or ground wave propagation. 80 meters can be a very useful band, even if it's not in your everyday operating mindset. It is nice to have. Now, I got the mini partially because of supply issues. When I went to go buy it, the full-size one was out of stock. And I suppose you could screw 2 minis into each other if that's a thing that you're interested in. Honestly, that's not even a bad idea if you really like the form factor. This thing is awfully small. I can fit it into the side pocket of my bag here. And I can tuck it under this little thing that comes with it here, but honestly, I've just been kind of tying it with the length of paracord just because I don't like to stretch out my bag. So this is an answer to some of the questions I've gotten about whether or not I recommend the Comet HFJ 350M. I would strongly recommend instead you looking into the Wolf River coils, because if you're being realistic, if you're being practical, the Comet is not super useful when it's mounted to the back of your rig, and it's definitely far from super efficient. So the Wolf River Coil is just a fantastic antenna, and I can't recommend it enough. Now, I did buy 2 whips. So I don't remember all the sizes exactly, but I'll generalize here. So there's about a 17-foot whip, there is an 8.5-foot whip, and then there's a 6.5-foot whip. I don't have the 17-foot one. It's kind of obnoxiously large. Don't get me wrong, it's efficient, and if you're looking to get like a permanent base station vertical, that's not a bad choice. But I chose these 2 whips, and you don't actually even have to buy 2. You can just do the one. This is the one that comes with the middle of the road 8.5 feet. This is not a bad whip. It's, like I said, middle of the road. It's not perfectly efficient. This is not as efficient as a full-size dipole, but it is pretty nice. Now, if you're looking for much more portable, there is a 6.5-foot whip. And again, you're going to lose some efficiency here, but it is thinner. I don't know exactly how well you can tell how much thinner that is, but it is thinner, it is marginally lighter, and it is also shorter. Again, there's the bottom and there's the top. It's a good several inches shorter. And so I bought this mostly as a spare, but also because I don't know, depending on in what context I'm taking this bag, it may not be super efficient to have an extra almost half a foot, probably over half a foot. You can't even see the whole thing, see? Probably over half a foot just sticking out above my bag here. That may not be as practical as compared to just significantly less, several inches less, sticking out above my bag. So this does have a smaller footprint, and depending on what kind of operating you're doing, maybe you can afford that loss in efficiency, and it is going to change the tuning of your coil, but like I said, that's completely up to you and how you choose to operate. I've been carrying both of them around lately, because I can't decide if this isn't too much more of a big deal to carry around. So that's the everyday station that I carry around with me. Now, here's some other equipment that I do own that I highly recommend looking into as well. So before I had the Wolf River Coil, I actually went and I made a speaker wire dipole. Now, speaker wire dipoles are very easy to make. You can go to the hardware store and pick up a $5 roll of 100 feet of, 20 gauge. I probably wouldn't go thinner. This is 24 gauge. I've run 100 watts on it, no problem. I probably wouldn't go any thinner than that. Most people recommend 18 gauge just for the structural integrity, but don't worry too much about running power. As long as you're not running a single thread of copper, you're probably going to be fine running anywhere under 100 watts. If you start getting into amplifiers, you probably know more about what you're doing, and I don't need to guide you there at all, but for portable antennas and the like, thin wire is usually not that big of a deal. I highly recommend making speaker wire dipoles. They are pretty monobanded. If you start getting into the G5RV land, or what's the other one called? The antenna that's based off of it's like the ZS6 something. It's a 2x3, I don't remember, but it's a type of antenna as well based off the G5RV, supposedly more efficient. I've made contact with N4H&H. He's made a YouTube video, or I'm sorry, he's pretty popular ham YouTuber, and he uses the ZS6 something antenna, and he said he's been very happy with it. So and we were able to make contact, and I'm however many hundreds of miles away from him. I don't actually remember what his QTH is. I'll obviously show that on screen here. But yeah, so some of those antennas are going to be multi-banded. Generally speaking, speaker wire dipoles are single-banded, and once you get into the multi-banded land, you are going to be losing efficiency in turning your feed line into a radiator and doing all sorts of weird tricks. It does work, but again, keep in mind that loss in efficiency. So this is my speaker wire dipole. I also have, when I want to force that dipole onto a different band, I also have a tuner. Now, I think tuners are really handy to have. Just absolutely, again, I think every ham should have at least one tuner. This is the MFJ 945 Echo. So this is a relatively big tuner. This is designed, actually both my FT891 and this tuner are designed as mobile tuners, designed to be put in cars. This is a manual. I think manual tuners are awesome compared to automatic tuners. Don't get me wrong, automatic's great. I do own one. But basically my opinion is that manual tuners are going to give you much greater capability than an automatic tuner at the same price because of all the electronics that have to be put into automatics. They are extremely pricey for some of the ones that would even do. This was about $100 tuner. To get a comparable automatic tuner, it would be closer to $300 that has the same capabilities as this. Now, if I had the choice and I wanted a portable tuner, I would have got the MFJ 902 Bravo. The 902B is probably about half the footprint of this, and it does have a balun built into it. It has roughly the same capabilities as the 945 Echo. It's just much smaller. The 945E can actually handle up to 300 watts. The 902 Bravo can handle up to 150. Generally speaking, the rule of thumb is that you should have a tuner that is rated for twice the power of what your transmitter can put out. Again, that's not a universal rule, just a rule of thumb. But that's the one that I have. If I had the choice again, I probably would have bought the 902B. It is cheaper. But both are good tuners. They're just manual tuners. And I can get a dipole not resonant. I can get a dipole with its impedance matched on, you know, in 30 seconds, maybe a minute if I've never done it before on that band. But yeah, it's not too tricky of a setup to do a manual tuner versus an automatic tuner if that's something you're worried about. So the next thing I have in my arsenal here is, again, if you are above technician, or even if you are a technician, I absolutely recommend every ham have this. This is a NanoVNA. NanoVNAs are incredibly useful. Vector network analyzers have been around for a long time, but they have been prohibitively expensive. The NanoVNA is relatively new, and it just does so much in such a small box. Hams really only use them. I shouldn't say that generally. I really only use it to check SWR on antennas. You can use this thing to measure filters. You can use it to figure out how much impedance your Wolf River Coil is giving you. Sorry, not impedance, inductance. It's an extremely versatile tool. They're under $100. I think I nagged this for like 60 off Amazon. It might maybe off brand. I don't know. It works. I can't really complain about it. Everybody should have NanoVNAs, given how cheap they are, given how much capability these things have. It's just invaluable in every ham shack. These things are great if you're at all into antenna building, which again, I think everybody should be, because you can build an antenna for $4 flat that may cost retail closer to $100. And it's just handy to know how to do, and it's not hard at all, especially if you have the right tools for the job. Oh, and I should have mentioned this while I was talking about my speaker wire dipole. So you can put your speaker wire dipole up in the air kind of however you want. There are dedicated antenna masts, soda beams, spider something. There's a whole boatload of, I'm sure MFJ makes some. There's a whole boatload of companies that make antenna masts out of fiberglass, out of carbon fiber. I chose to go the cheap route because I'm like that. And I went to Fleet Farm and bought a extendable fishing rod for about 20 bucks. This thing goes up to 18 feet. I wish I could extend it fully here, but I'm poking my ceiling after just a few segments. This thing extends out to 18 feet, and it's very light. If you wanted to bring this up on top of a summit, you could use it as a walking stick. It's about, I'm 5'8". Let's take a look here. Well, I'd say it's about 4 feet, maybe a little over 4 feet in its collapsed version. But yeah, you can, that's actually why I have that orange paracord from earlier, is so that I can tie the speaker wire dipole up to this thing. I have a little zip tie looped in the middle of it, and I just tie it to the one of the eyelets on the fishing pole. So this thing is, again, for 20 bucks. This is not a permanent setup. This is designed for portable. Sorry, it's designed for fishing. I use it for portable. I don't recommend this for a permanent setup. But again, if you can go and spend a quarter of the price for a relatively comparable product, as long as you're not spending hundreds of dollars, usually it's not a bad idea to at least give it a try. This fishing pole has worked absolute wonders for me. I worked it in my last video in the North American QSO party, and I was talking all over, and then made some DX as well. This thing is just awesome. Now, to actually get it sitting upright, and I didn't show this in the video, to get this thing sitting upright, I actually use a steel punch. Well, this is a PVC tube. I use it to hold a steel punch. Now, if you care at all about these kinds of things, you're probably going to take better care of it than I have. This thing is rusted to high hell because I've left it outside and I haven't washed it. It's actually still got mud caked on it. Again, this is not something I care about. This is a steel punch. I think they're used for, I think sailors use them to untie tricky knots. I think they're used in the railroad industry. I'm already getting rust on my hands. I'm gonna put it away. I made this little PVC pipe bomb looking thing. Again, I look like a terrorist with a lot of this stuff. I made this little PVC carrier, again, just so that I didn't have to cake rust on my hands every darn time I want to open this. Yeah, so I just pound this into the ground, and the bottom of my fishing pole actually unscrews, and I just kind of slide this over it. If this fishing pole were longer than 18 feet, I'd probably want to start running guy lines. I have not had that issue. I've kept this thing up in 30 mile, probably a little less than 30 mile an hour winds, but it takes it surprisingly well, and that very much depends on your soil composition and how hard you punch this stake into the ground. But the setup as a whole, again, is relatively versatile. If I were going on a hike of some kind, I would tuck this into one of the side pockets of my bag, but I don't do that anymore because I run the Wolf River Coil, and again, the speaker wire dipole on 20 meters is what mine's tuned to, is more efficient than the Wolf River Coil. But in my case, because I want multiple bands and because I want a resonant antenna, the Wolf River Coil is more practical for me. And I'm going to put that qualifier on it for me. If you have a different situation and you only ever want to go on 20 meters, or you only ever want to go on 40 or 17 or even 80, a little dipole packed along with a little mast or a fishing pole, that may be way more practical for you. But that's not the decision that I made. Now finally, I have for some 2 meter and 70 centimeter work, I'm just gonna move this chair out of the way, I built this guy. So this is a tape measure yagi, a Yagi antenna. Can't really see me. Here we go. A Yagi antenna is a directional antenna. This is a very simple 2 meter design. So it has a reflector, a driver, and no, this is a driver. I don't remember what this is the active element of the antenna. So this is fed directly by Coax and into my handheld. And so basically this antenna is directional. It's field portable. It folds up. It's very light. It's made of PVC. I think I put it together for like $15 worth of material, and about $10 of that was a tape measure. So this is a very handy antenna. I have injected packets into the International Space Station's APRS digipeater with this. I have made hundreds of mile contacts on SO50, the satellite, with this, and honestly, it's just a relatively easy to make. And again, you could, if you're just starting out, this could be a day project of going into the hardware store and putting this thing together. I'll link a video in the cards. I think that's which way. Yeah, I think it'll show up right up over here on the right side of your screen. I'll include a link to the YouTube video that I followed to design this antenna, and it's got all the measurements and everything you need. So this is an awesome project. Tape measure Yagis are very easy, they're very effective, and they're a very useful way of increasing your range of your handheld. If you want to work satellites with this, then you are going to be limited to VU satellites. So VU satellites are VHF uplink and UHF downlink. And the only reason for that is because this is a VHF antenna, and if you try and pump UHF through it, it may work, it may be resonant, but it's not going to be very directional. There are, I think UHF usually uses like 13 element, maybe not for the handheld ones. There's 70 centimeter antenna designs that you can follow. At that point, if you're looking for like a 2-in-1 antenna for VHF, UHF, honestly, I almost recommend going out to Arrow antennas or elk antennas and buying one. It's honestly, for starters, supporting those companies is absolutely fantastic. Those are awesome companies, and their antenna designs are super good, and their build quality is fantastic. But just buying one of those antennas, honestly, you're gonna get a better product, and it's gonna save you the hassle of making a 2-in-1. But if you just want a 2-meter one, this is a really fun and easy project, and I've used this to decode. I'll throw some pictures on the screen. I've used this to decode NOAA weather satellite images, and those are transmitted around 137 to 138 megahertz. And that was a really fun project that I picked up last month and just toyed around with. But yeah, so this is used for all sorts of satellite work and is just generally a really cool project. So that's almost my entire station in a nutshell. I do have some more equipment. I have a Yaesu FT818 laying around that I've been meaning to sell. The only other thing that I really think is important to mention here is that as a ham, you should really have a lot of adapters. Good God, you can never have enough adapters. And honestly, because of how small they are, every ham fest you go to, you should probably go home with some adapters. Just having a very small box, just loaded with BNC to UHF, SMA to UHF, SMA to BNC, all sorts of antenna connectors. You're always going to be missing one. Just get a crap ton of adapters, honestly. It's never a bad idea to have too many. The only other thing that I really forgot to mention was that this bag, so this is an on-camera bag that's on with two ends. I picked this up for 20 bucks at Walmart. This is a great bag, honestly. For $20. If you get a Pelican case, that's gonna be awesome. That's gonna be way better than this. If you spend more money on a camera bags are great for ham radio. They provide nothing in terms of water prevention, but what they do provide is padding and convenient form factor. So a lot of there's actually an interesting overlap between the size of portable ham radio equipment and the size of camera equipment. High-end cameras are seemingly about the same size as small ham radios, and so getting camera bags is such a easy cost-saving measure for setting up a portable station. So again, this bag, 20 bucks. I've used it for 2 years. It's been awesome. I really can't complain about this thing. You know, it's getting to be packed near its brim here a little bit, especially now that I'm stuffing some coax into it instead of my little speaker wire ladder line. But it's been keeping up really well. It shows no visible signs of wearing at all, even in points where I'm kind of stressing it a little bit. And again, I'm doing a little bit to help it. You know, I'm using this this little paracord to kind of make sure that this, once I flip this upside down, to make sure that this Wolf River Coil doesn't fall out. But yeah, no, this is camera bags are just awesome for ham radio portable equipment. So aside from that, I really don't have anything else to talk about. That's been my portable station. If you run something similar or even something completely alien to this, feel free to drop it in the comments. I'd be totally stoked to hear about how you guys are running portable ham radio. This is just my station. There are plenty others who have done it way better than me. But this has been my station, and if it's given you guys any ideas on how to improve your portable station, drop it in the comments. That stuff's awesome. But until next time, honestly, I don't really have anything else. So I'll wish you guys 73 and good luck operating out there in the field. This has been Zach, Whiskey 9 Zebra Kilo. Till next time.